the Rangers Journal Night.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Rangers Journal this afternoon after we played out a 2-2 draw with Club Brugge. 2-0 down early doors and clawing things back for the draw. Some things never change, but we've plenty of excitement and interesting things, I think, to pick up on as well. And joining me to touch on this just now is Andrew. How are you feeling after that, Andrew?
Yeah, much better than the first 15 minutes. Very interesting game. Saw some very interesting players. Some that you might think their time might have been up, but maybe there's a little bit of a resurgence, maybe. But yeah, no, I'll take a game like that. I'll take a draw like that, especially with the way it started. Because yeah, got to be honest, it wasn't pretty to watch in the first 20.
Indeed. Welcome everyone who is in the chat already and are starting to talk about the game. Good to see you all again. So yeah, we'll go over the game in light detail. We'll dissect it in more detail tomorrow night on Monday's podcast. But just as a reminder for everyone, have a quick look at the starting lineup, which was Kelly in goals, Aarons, Proper, King, and Jeffrey across the back. Barron and Raskin were the sitting two with Dowell ahead of them. Cortez, Curtis were the two wingers, and then Danilo up front. We started off in that sort of familiar 4-2-3-1 kind of formation. And like we said there, Andrew, it kind of was a bit of a slow start. I tend to find friendlies usually kind of start off in one of two ways. You either have that kind of, everything's new, pep, and a little zip to things, or you get that slightly lethargic, it's the first game back, and it's not quite going to plan. And we kind of started off in that direction. And within just under or just over 10 minutes, we were a goal down.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great. I did feel we were getting a bit exposed out on the right-hand side. I think Aarons, and I think at one point, I think Curtis was kind of over there as well. Proper, I think, especially for the first goal, he was definitely kind of in no man's land. I think nobody really could, in that back line, pat themselves on the back at all. It just felt very disjointed. Granted, though, Bruges, they didn't really come forward too much, but the couple of times they kind of did, they were deadly, and you could see that, you know what, if we don't sort ourselves out here, we could be in for a bit of a hiding. But yeah, very poor first goal to lose. We kind of break up the other end of the pitch, don't we? But again, we just looked that little bit disjointed. I think Cortez looked quite heavily involved, but there was a point where I can't remember who it was now. It might have been because my notes aren't here now. I'm very good at deleting things. Somebody was shouting at Cortez because he just wouldn't advance. He was just kind of too near. Cortez, again, there was a point we were 3-on-2, weren't we? And we didn't even really manage to get a shot away. So it was looking a little bit worrying. We did look a little bit slower. Bruges look a bit more up to speed than we did. They definitely looked a bit faster, I would say.
Yeah, I think at one point in the commentary they mentioned that they were about a week ahead of us in preparation. I know we sort of touched on we weren't 100% sure where they were in their pre-season. And they did kind of look like that. They had that kind of extra week in the legs in terms of training. Cortez, I think, I definitely saw why people would be shouting him in that regard, because I thought he was quite decent defensively, as much as we were poor overall in the first half, but he wasn't really giving us a whole lot going forward, and that kind of changed in the second half. He was a bit more attacking until he came off, and as we'll touch on, involved in a goal. In terms of overall tactics, as I say, we were kind of in that traditional sort of 4-2-3-1, but some things that I did see that were different was you could see the press, or at least attempts at it. It improved in the second half, but there certainly was attempts at the press. We're playing a higher line than we did last season, and both fullbacks very much inverted a lot, pushed very, very high. The traditionalists who are always wanting us to have a new right back because it will have someone who will defend. I don't know if they're going to be getting that this season based on that first half from Aarons. He spent a lot of time very high and inverted, very similar to how Tav would normally have played if he'd been in there. But there did seem to be more connection between the sections, I felt. That was one thing that we were quite poor at times last season. And I did see a little bit more of that, as much as I say, the play itself was kind of disjointed. Was there anything in particular you picked up yourself in the first half in terms of differences?
First, like you say, it was quite surprising. Aaron's was very, very similar to what we see from Tav. Got caught out a couple of times. It did pull off a really good challenge a little bit later on in the half, but the first half, I think I didn't see possession stats because a lot of the statos don't really collate a lot of the stats for these type of games. But I would say we probably had more possession. Bruges kind of, I think, got comfortable after their second goal. At first, it really did look like we were very disjointed. I think Raskin, I did feel we were trying to play very direct. We were trying to, again, we're in the box, there's a chance of a shot, we lay it off. There was a little bit of that going on. There wasn't as much wing play, I found. There was a lot of cutting in, like you say. When we actually did start kind of getting the ball out to the wing, Raskin in a good bit of space just thumped the ball into the crowd, which was a bit frustrating. Again, early pre-season, maybe not up to speed yet. But yeah, second half definitely much better than that first half. Standouts for me in that first half, it was we didn't see too much from I'm trying to think now. Obviously, the goalkeeper situation, we didn't see too much when Kelly, he just kind of picked the ball out of net a couple of times. There was one, I think, for the second goal, when the shot came in, he kind of parried it straight back into danger, which, it's a difficult one. It was a reaction save. I don't think he had that much time to prepare for it. But, you want to see your keeper kind of maybe try and get it away. But it's a difficult one. That's a Champions League side. That's a side that, started off quite poorly in the Champions League and then have really grown into that tournament in recent years. So they are a Champions League side. So can't take that away from them. I think, especially in that first half, Danilo, there was a couple of little nice little tricks with the ball. I think there was a great ball in from the left-hand side, and he kind of chipped it up, and I thought, oh no, just hit it first time, and he didn't. So nice little bits of play from Danilo, but again, I don't think he's fully up to speed yet. And Leon King didn't cover himself in too much glory in that first half. Not to be too hard on the young lad, he did pull off a good bit of defending where he's on the floor and manages to head it away, but especially for involved in that first and second goal, a little bit at sea there. But I think we saw a little bit of Cortez in that first half, not too much. Still looking a little bit slower. But it was good to kind of get a first kind of glimpse of Aaron's, and just to see, even though you can't really paint a full picture of the lad just yet. But there are some similarities to Tav, and it gives you an idea of how Martin wants Aaron's to play, I think.
Yep, absolutely. So with obviously lost a goal about 11 minutes, and we didn't have to wait long for the second to come. Only 13 minutes on the clock, and we were 2-0 down. Again, not the greatest defending, a little bit slack on the right hand side, but if you're going to lose goals in a friendly, we can at least lose a screamer, and that was a bit what this one was. Just have to kind of put your hands up to the strike. The guy hits it beautifully, and it puts it in the top corner for 2-0.
It's a belter of a goal, isn't it? It's one of them you just catch sweetly outside the box, and right there in the top bin, keeper's got no chance, and it's that worst possible time, isn't it? You're still early on into the game, you're 2-0 down already, and you're thinking, how is he going to change this up? Again, I know the result doesn't mean anything, and of course that's not a team you're expecting to start most games, but that was a shame at that point, and we kind of were in a little bit of a lull. We started to settle into the game a little bit better after that, didn't we? But it was a belter of a goal. You can't take anything away from that. That's one he'll have on his highlight reel.
Yep, that was it. And as you say, as we moved into kind of 20-25 minutes after that, we did start settling into the game. We started to play a little bit better. They got a few little passing structures together. 25 minutes, we finally got a good shot in. I think it was Raskin. It was a fairly straightforward save, resulting in a corner, but as I say, a bit more improved play. Bruce hit the post just before the half-hour mark, and then we had another kind of period of possession, but we didn't really do an awful lot with it, and then the half ended at 2-0. As one would expect, we made a number of changes at half-time, so off went Kelly, Propper, Barron, Raskin and Dowell, and on came Butland, Tavernier to centre-back, Rice, Bajrami and Diomande. And also key, I think, as well, is that the formation changed slightly to more of a 4-3-2-1 with one of the midfielders sitting, in this case, Rice, and then two Diomande and Bajrami being more attacking, which is kind of the inverse of what we were doing in the first half. And I think immediately, a combination of the change of personnel and the system, we were much more on the front foot. The press was immediately better and more aggressive. And we just sort of, not to make the joke twice, but it was very much a sort of a reflection of last season where they went in, maybe didn't get quite a bollocking, but they obviously got a talking to, and they just came out much more seemingly up for the game than they did at the start of the first half.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do like the fact that the Rangers Twitter did put out a starting 11 for the second half, which is a bit of a contradiction in itself, really, is it? 'Cause it's not really a starting 11.
Sitting there reading it going, right, who's changed?
Yeah, exactly. It's not a starting 11. They're not starting, really, are they? But maybe we're into that part now with modern football. But yeah, Diomande instantly, just that change of shape and that change of personnel. I have to say, Bajrami, he really was chasing the ball down. He looked really fast. He looked really hungry. And again, it's just what you get from Diomande. In them tight spaces, he can lay off a ball, lay off a pass. We started creating almost instantly. The first half, we had some half chances, some snapshots, didn't we? There was nothing really, anything that was really gilt-edged, bar I think one shot that Mignolet kind of hit off him and went wide for a corner. But yeah, we were much better in that second half, and it was good when the goal came because it was a well-worked goal, I do think. And yeah, it got us all going, and yeah, it was good to see. It was good to see us just starting to press that little bit more. Cortez coming into it a little bit more as well. And to be fair, Curtis, fair play to the lad. He was playing really, really well. And it was some of the link-up play. We were starting to do some little one-touch passes. I know that later on in the game, obviously we had... was it Yilmaz? Yilmaz came on, didn't he? Oh my goodness, I can't even think now. Yeah, because he came on and started. Was starting these little triangular passes, which, don't get me wrong, this type of game, you've probably got a little bit more confidence because there's nothing at stake. But it was good to see us actually just trying to move the ball around fast, and that really helped us to kind of press Bruges a little bit, because Bruges had really gone into their shell a little bit. I don't think Butland really had that much to do in the second half, being completely honest. And yeah, just that, could Dio and Bajrami be that kind of attacking force we need in the middle?
Possibly. I mean, I think we'll see potentially a few combinations in that kind of setup. We've certainly got quite a few players that can kind of rotate around those, not just those two, but all three midfield positions. I think we'll see potentially a few depending on the opposition we play. So I think that could be quite interesting. Like you said, we came into the game in the second half much better, and it only took us 5 minutes until we got onto the score sheet to take one back. Cortez finally showing a little bit more urgency up front, reads a per pass really well, cuts in from his sort of wide area into the middle to take the ball, slides a nice pass to Diomande, and then he just puts a really cool finish into the bottom corner. I saw someone say it kind of reminded them of Kamara's finish against Leipzig.
Yeah, that was me.
Was that you?
That was me, yeah.
I couldn't remember if I saw it on Twitter or if it was in the group chat, but and yeah, I totally agree. It had that same kind of just pinpoint accuracy and kind of cool finish. And yeah, that just kind of got the crowd going a bit and started that second half going.
It was a great goal, and it really did. The second it left his foot, I think you knew it was in the back of the net. It wasn't just a hit; it was just deftly just like passed into that bottom corner, wasn't it? Fantastic stuff. It's good to see Dio more advanced. I think we've always kind of moaned that Dio, needs to be more of an attacking player, and he's always had the reins on a little bit. We've seen him at times in that blooming double pivot at times when you're at home in the league and you think to yourself, no, get the leash off him, get him a bit more forward, a bit more advanced. He's got it in his locker, and you know, it was a well worked goal. It really was, and it was really good to see, a really good goal to get back into the game.
Absolutely, and things carried on in that kind of vein as we kept playing through the game. Bruce did have a chance shortly after, but it was a comfortable save from Butland, and I think the only real save he had to make in that second half, other than he did come out to catch a ball over the top at one point, but that's all I really remember him having to do. We obviously got to see the centre-back Tav, which is obviously one of the big discussion points, or has been one of the big discussion points. I thought he acquitted himself well again in that game. We immediately got his sort of classic cross balls from deep, which we didn't really have in the first half. We got a couple of chances off of those. And he very much reminds me of, maybe not quite as quick as him, but as a centre-back, he's very much, and now his name's totally disappeared, the Algerian.
You might think Majid Bouguera.
That's the one. He very much reminds me as Bouguera as a centre back, because he still finds himself right up and in the opposition box a lot of the time, and he still kind of moves forward quite a lot, despite being in that centre back position. So I think that's something we'll probably see of him. He was often the one to step up. We still had the fullbacks coming in and inverting, and like you said, Yilmaz at one point in particular was all the way across to the right hand side as he came in and sort of made a few triangles. So I think we'll see a lot of movement around our defenders in terms of their passing the ball, and again with that high line, it pushes the whole team further up, which I think will be a big difference to last season, because a lot of the times, you know, again, you'd be passing the ball about in that midfield area and never really going anywhere. But if your defenders are stepping up like that and your fullbacks are inverting, you've suddenly extra players in that centre space. Your midfielders are pushed up, your attackers are pushed up, and it just immediately gets you further up the pitch before you've even really started your move.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's good to see a little bit of synchronicity, isn't it? Where you can actually see what we're trying to do. Genuinely, you did feel after the first goal and the way we were coming forward, we're definitely equalising, or if not, we're going to win the game. Some of the passing, not all the passing was great. Again, there was still some rustiness. I think Hutton played well when he came on. Curtis really grew into the game, and he really did. And some of the things he was doing, I remember he was in the box, kind of under pressure, managed to get the ball up and over him across the face of goal. And I thought, that's just absolutely fantastic. That's what you need. It was right into the danger zone. But yeah, we were looking good, and we were looking good. Again, it's a friendly. We'll have to see what it's like when the chips are down, when we are actually playing competitive football. Again, this isn't the starting 11, but you're starting to see there are players there that you go, right, you know what? Some of the young lads might actually have a little bit of a shout this year. We might see them a little bit more on the bench. It's really good that they did get a chance today, because you know, it's very easy for the manager to look at all of his stronger options and maybe not look at the youth like many managers have done before. But good to see them. Bailey Rice as well. It was a really good move involving Rice later on in the half. Absolutely fantastic. It's that second half. I'll definitely have to watch it back, but it was definitely much more positive, and it was good to see. And you know what? Maybe Cortez might be able to contribute something this season. Obviously, he has to, because we're paying $5 million for him. If he's got his injury worries behind him, fantastic. Danilo, I think, granted, there wasn't a hell of a lot, but you could see just technically as a player, he is very good. He did. And again, it's that link up with everyone else. If Dessers is in that situation, the link-up probably isn't as strong. But again, he probably might have grabbed a goal today. So that's that kind of difference, isn't it, with Dessers, the enigma. But it was interesting to see a life, in some respects, without a Dessers, without Egerman. And obviously, when Raskin came off, it was interesting there as well. Seeing Diamandi and Bajrami together is interesting, because then you're kind of looking at, the possibility of life after Raskin as well, if Raskin doesn't sign this new deal and goes. So, yeah, definitely a lot of promises.
Absolutely. We question from Smoke here, did Curtis play the full game? He did. Got through all the way to the 90, and it's a good thing that he did, as we'll touch on in a moment's time. We had, I think, one more chance, I remember, just before the substitutions. Aarons found himself in the box. but lack of composure kind of skies it over the top. But good to see him obviously looking like he will provide some attacking thrust as well. And that was just before the 60th minute when we made our next raft of subs. So off came, let me check my notes here, off went Aarons himself, Danilo, Cortez, Jeff Day and King. And on came the new signing Fernandez, and he is just as big as he looked in promos.
He's huge, isn't he?
Yep, Josh Gentles, who a young lad, not many people may be as familiar with him. As he's said in the pre-match, as a striker, kind of attacking midfielder kind of player, and he did go up front. Yilmaz came on to the left, Hutton came on to the right, and Ross McCausland came on and played on the right hand side he played left and right hand side across the time. So again, another raft of changes. All the young players on, as we've already touched on, and I think all of them acquitted themselves really well. I know a couple of folk in the comments have already been saying that also. I think all three of them, or all four of them, five if you want to include McCausland, all played really well, but in particular, Curtis really was the pick of the bunch. Just before we get to his highlight, we did get a few more chances on 66 minutes. Diomande had a good chance that just went wide, kind of similar in terms of strike to his goal. McCausland had a chance blocked just before the 80th minute. Bruges did get a break on the 84th, but sort of blasted the shot over the bar. There was then a tap free kick switched from deep that led to Curtis having a really good strike that was saved by the goalkeeper. And then a minute later came the highlight for him. A really good break from us. Barami, who I thought played really well and showed everything that we were asking from him in the pre-match when we talked earlier. Shows determination, fights off the player on him, manages to slip the ball over to Curtis, and then again, very similar to the first goal, pinpoint, this time with a little bit more oomph to it, though, into the bottom corner and brought us back to 2-2.
It was a great way to end the game, wasn't it? And again, an absolutely fantastic move, and everyone deserves credit there. Just brilliant, absolutely just brilliant. And it's good for the young man, because you know what? We've spoken many a time on the journal, haven't we, about the youth and, you know, some of the chances. And to be fair, some of the youth have had chances, especially last season, but then seemed to kind of really go out the picture, you know, especially when we saw a lot of the players come on, you know, especially at Old Trafford as well. Clement really did give some of the players a good chance that night. We managed to equalise at that point, but you know, that'll do him the world of good. The gaffer will get his arm around him tonight, and there'll be a lot. Obviously, one thing I was liking that somebody did mention in the group chat as well was when we got the goal back. Martin's running over at the iPad and he's dissecting the goal, and he's looking for the bits we could have still done better with, and it just shows you the standards, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was a great goal. It's a shame it came so late, because I think if it came a little bit earlier, I think we'd go on to win it. But again, it's not necessarily about the result today. It's about seeing the team, getting everyone playing together, getting the fitness in the legs, getting everybody a run around, and giving Martin some food for thought about his starting 11 in 14 days' time against Panathinaikos.
Absolutely. We got to see new signing Fernandez. What did you make of him?
Yeah, tall. Very tall. And do you know what? I think we have been lacking height. You look at players with big stature like Connor Goldson, who, you know, Goldson got a lot of stick towards the end, but he was quite a reliable centre-back, but not as tall as Fernandez. I think that's going to be quite handy, especially with, you know, our defending at set pieces has been atrocious in recent years. I think that's something we really need to sort out, and having somebody big in there when the ball's coming in just to smash it clear. Don't get me wrong, you know, the metrics will be looked at, and I'm sure he's really good with the ball at his feet. Didn't see him too much, obviously today, but yeah, no, it's good. He looks like a good lad, and yeah, just more competition for the defensive berths, because we need that in this team. We need competition. We need everyone fighting to start. And of course, you look at players that missed out today from, you know, the centre back area. We still had Suter out, among others. So yeah.
Well, on that point, Paul has asked a question saying, weird situation, why Enciala wasn't in the squad? He's far better than King. My only assumption would be either he's got maybe a little knock or something and just wasn't quite ready, or just general fitness thing. perhaps one or the other. He did feature in both the training videos, or all 3 training videos. He looked fine in them, so that would be my assumption. But obviously, that is just an assumption at the moment, Paul. So who knows? I'm sure we will see him at some point, though. So he did look promising last season, and I do hope to see him this season as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. 100%. Nsiala, saw him a couple of times in Europe last season and actually really looked the part. Still looked a bit raw in some games. There was obviously a couple of games he did make some mistakes in, which is understandable. He's young. Things are going to happen. I just don't think he was as strong enough last season. Again, I don't know if he might have bulked up a little over the summer. I'm not too sure, but it's still probably a work in progress at the minute. It was very split last season, wasn't it? I think towards the latter part of last season, Nsiala, you could really see what he's like actually with the ball at his feet. He isn't too bad at all. Again, that's probably why he was on AC Milan's books.
Yep.
A very good technical player for possibly for Serie A, but obviously it didn't fully work out for him there. But again, a great player, for development. Hopefully we can get, a couple of years out of him. And you do feel that he's probably at some point going to go for some money. What that amount is, we don't know yet. But I can see him making a mark here, an impact, and being elsewhere in a couple of years, definitely.
Absolutely. And then I think the other player that kind of I saw bringing out conversation in the group chat and on Twitter was Ross McCausland. Paul's kind of put it here. I think I kind of agree with this. All legs, but no end product. He was very much involved in the second half when he came on. He was on the ball a lot. He was involved in a lot of passing, but nothing seemed to come off for him. His shots were blocked, or his crosses were blocked, or a last minute tackle. As I say, it did very much feel like a lot of industry without much sort of coming out at the end.
Yeah, I think sadly we've seen that. It's almost a continuation a little bit from last season. I love McCausland. It looked like we'd had kind of find somebody that's finally come through for that kind of right hand side. But again, he goes on them little runs sometimes, get past 1 or 2, and I think he scored in the Europa League, didn't he? Was it Malmo? He scored that great goal. But I think not necessarily fully like Matondo, but I think he does try to emulate that a few times, like Matondo kind of has done. But yeah, it's maybe a loan might do him good. Get out to another SPFL team or championship side. Get some development there, because I don't think he's going to fully have a lot of game time this season. Would he work in this Martin kind of setup? Don't get me wrong, it wasn't terrible today by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if you look at the kind of contribution to the game, I don't think it was a hell of a lot. So yeah, maybe needs a bit of time out, and I don't think he's going to feature too much this season.
Yes, I probably agree with that, particularly if we bring in some of the players we're getting linked with in those positions as well. I think we'll see his slipping down that totem pole. So all in all, then, as I say, I think we agree. Game of 2 halves, a bit poor in the first, but much improved in the second, and lots more to take from that than we might have thought we were getting. Who would you have as your man of the match?
I'd probably go for Curtis, to be fair. Really good impact in the game. Head never went down. And was giving his all to the end of the match, which he did indeed, and did very well. So, yeah, there's probably a few in there as well. I have to say, Cortez's contribution was fairly decent as well. After a little bit of a slow start to the game, definitely was performing better a little bit later on. Aaron's, I think jury's out a little bit at the minute. Again, getting used to life in Scotland, understandable in this match. But yeah, I'd give it to Curtis. I think the lad earned that one today. Very good, pinning back that kind of team in the second half. And you're looking at a Champions League side there. Yeah, they made some substitutes too, but they still had a fairly decent, strong squad there. So yeah, Curtis for me.
100% agree. I thought he was the only player in the first half that really looked kind of on top of things, and I say that just improved in the second half, and obviously topped off with his I think his first senior goal, albeit not in a competitive game. So yeah, I think an absolutely great day for him, and hopefully we'll see him continue on that run. So next up is Panathinaikos on the 22nd. So forgive me for I've lost the question. Someone did ask, do we have any other friendlies apart from Middlesbrough? Right now we do not. So it's literally straight into Champions League qualifying, Middlesbrough, and then back to Champions League qualifying. It's a big game. Do you think he's going to go with anything remotely similar to what we saw today? Maybe not from the start, but in terms of the players, or will he risk throwing in some of the new guys straight in, do you think?
Well, I think obviously they'll be down at the training ground down in England, won't they? England's training ground, I think they're going to be at, aren't they? It wouldn't surprise me if there's a couple of like closed door games there, just to get themselves ready for that game. I don't know. There's only been one other closed door friendly. There's still players to come in. We still haven't seen Big Theo yet. Obviously, we saw him being paraded there at half time. So, yeah, I think it's still a little bit of an unknown. I think you'll have an idea, obviously, if Bajrami puts in that type of performance, if Cortez puts in that second half performance, then I think you could see some of them guys starting. The backline definitely won't be the backline that we saw start the game today. Probably you would take more players from the second half starting than the first half, but again, it's a little bit of an unknown, I think, at the minute. But it is only 2 weeks away, like you say, Doug. It really is. This is almost like being in the season now. You know, sometimes you have that period where you do have a weekend off, don't you? And then you're back at it the week after. So this is something that we've never been too good with, Champions League qualifiers, just because of when they start. We're never up and running. And luckily, though, for us, we're not playing a side like Malmo again, where they're already halfway through their season and they're already up to speed. So at least we have, we're not at a disadvantage, in that sense. But yeah, I'm sure you'll have an idea, but it would surprise me if it's only maybe 60-70% at the minute.
Do you think Curtis has played himself into a start?
I think he'll be on the bench. We do need that Scottish quota, so I think it will be utilised with somebody like him and obviously maybe Mason Munn. But could feature. I'm not sure if he'll start. I think you got to look after the young players well. Obviously, you look at King now. What's happened with him after coming on against Liverpool when we're already like 3-1 down, and then you'll see Mo Salah coming on. That rabbit in the headlight situation for poor King there. So we obviously got to. Don't get me wrong, if he's ready and he's chomping at the bit, why not? But obviously it doesn't always work like that in football, and I'm sure that Martin will give him the time when he needs it.
Absolutely, he has. Is it 2 games he played in the Europa League last year? He came on against Man United. I can't remember if he played in any other ones, but
I can't think. Definitely probably Old Trafford. Yeah,
because Evan Rice came on in that game. But yeah, he's definitely. I think he's certainly done himself no harm in that regard. So I think that about wraps us up for today. As I say, we've had a game of 2 halves. First half a little bit concerning. Second half kind of put those concerns to bed slightly and gave us a lot more to pour over. That'll definitely be the half I'll be focusing on. Thanks everyone who has been in the chat, contributing and chatting away there, all the usual suspects, and anyone new. Do like and subscribe to the channel and hit the wee bell for notifications of whenever we put stuff live. We put out content 5 days a week, even more when there's matches on, and we will be going through the match in more detail with more of the guys on Monday night, so do tune in for that as well. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me pre and post match.
No problem. It was. It's just good to see football back, isn't it? We get a little bit starved over the summer, but yeah, a pleasure being on, Doug.
That's it. And just 2 weeks to go to our next game, which is the home game against Panathinaikos in the Champions League qualifier. Need to try and get a good result from that to take to the away game. So everything to play for, and so much more still to do. But stick with us on the Rangers Journal if you want to keep abreast of all the news pre-season going into the competitive games. Thank you for tuning in. And just leaves for me to say thank you for myself. And do not remember that every night it's a Rangers Journal night. See you later.